PowerBoat Television is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Ford F-Series, smart, tough, capable. And Cruisers Yachts, manufacturing world-class boats. There are many different types of boats and just as many types of boat racing. There's one type of boat racing that is getting a fair bit of traction in Ontario, and that's outboard drag racing. Boats of almost all shapes and sizes race down an 800-foot straightaway at speeds well in excess of 100 miles per hour in head-to-head format. For those who have never raced before, there is a lot of preparation to get a race boat from the garage to the race course. We were fortunate enough to connect with one of the founding members of the Ontario Powerboat Racing Association, OPBRA, to learn more about drag boats and this particular person's lifelong passion for going fast.
The bug for going fast, I just came across it naturally. Growing up at the cottage, I used to see fast boats all the time, and they really got my attention. And much to my parents' disappointment, I didn't go into the canoe, I went for a boat. My first boat was an 8-foot fiberglass hydroplane death trap thing. Started it with a 9.8 Merc and then went to a 20 Merc. First race boat was similar to this one. It was a 1990 Mod VP Allison XR 2001.
Drag boat racing is not just a matter of hitting the throttle and hanging on for dear life.
With a V-bottom boat, you're balancing the boat on a string. You're running on a pad about 6 inches wide. You're literally balancing the boat. When you go to a tunnel hull, you've got 2 sponsons that you're working with. I've had a tunnel hull. I prefer a V-bottom. The most important element is the hole shot. You will win or lose at the light. There's not a lot of times that you'll see a drag racer run down the opponent at the big end. The boat is 20 feet long. This motor produces about 400 horsepower. Unfortunately, Merck stopped making their high-performance V6s, so we're dealing with a lot of older parts that are being reconditioned, rebuilt. This block is 2004. It has been pretty radically ported and re-sleeved and worked on. It turns 11,000 RPM. 800 foot times to be competitive in this class, just over 7 seconds. About 102, 103 miles an hour at the end of 800 feet. With the trim computer system that we run, all the trimming is done automatically. When you put your foot to the floor, it triggers the computer, and the computer takes care of the delay and the duration for the trim cycle. After that, if you need a little bit more positive trim or a little bit of negative trim, you'll bump the button on the steering wheel. Other than that, you're steering the boat, and that's it.
And like any form of racing, you have to take the good with the bad.
The boat is a 2007 model year Allison XR 2001 drag. The deck is a 2017 because I had a little bit of an incident that required me to put a new deck on it. At the World Championships in 2016, I got a little bit upside down at the 600-foot mark in the track. I blew over, crossed the finish line upside down and backwards. My landing point was about 870 feet, so I basically traveled 270 feet in the air. The rule with the organization we were competing with that weekend is that if you cross the finish line in contact with the vessel, it counts. And their finish line video showed me still in contact with the boat as I crossed the finish line, so I got the win. It was a combination of 3 things. The biggest factor was my trim stuck. So after launch, after my trim computer ran through its regular cycle of trimming the motor, I needed a bit more trim. And when I bumped the trim switch, the trim solenoid stuck, so it trimmed to the max. As the nose came up, the back of the boat drove past the front of the boat. I didn't quite walk away from it. They fished me out of the lake unconscious and took me to the hospital. I ended up with a broken collarbone. I had a concussion, and I was a delightful shade of purple for quite a while. The boat was surprisingly in good shape. The deck was fractured, so we put a whole new top cap on it. But the hull is the original hull that was built in 2007. I'm one of the founding members of the OPBRA. We needed an organization to run our events. That started 5 years ago, came to fruition about 4 years ago, and we ran our first race 3 years ago. We have classes that basically include family ski boats, bass boats, and performance lake boats. Classes right now are dominated by Mercury two-strokes. There's no doubt about that. We have one Evinrude E-Tech that is at just about every event now. There's a couple of other OMC products that are coming out. Our T classes, which aren't drag racing, those are our oval track classes, are dominated by OMC. But when it comes to drag racing right now, Mercury has a lock on it. As two-strokes are becoming less and less popular, the corporate support isn't there anymore. Both BRP and Mercury are now pushing more towards either direct injected two-strokes or four-strokes. And unfortunately, those motors are just too heavy, especially for a boat like this. Mercury is the dominant force, and it's just because there's so many of them out there. Safety is a paramount concern. It's the most important thing. We all have to wear proper Snell-approved helmets, proper life jackets, which are rated for 100-mile-an-hour impact with flak protection, kill switches for both ignition and fuel systems. It's just a matter of using your head. We all have to go to work on Monday.
Since the OPBRA was founded 5 years ago, they have organized over a dozen races. And in the past 3 years, they have doubled the amount of participants and spectators that come to these exciting events. Later in the show, we will follow Greg to their race in Peterborough, Ontario, home to over a century of boat and engine building history.
This is the Adventurer 188 DC from Smokercraft. This is my buddy Jake Romanek, Smokercraft Fishing Pro, host of Fishing 411, and I am a little underdressed for a late October day of fishing out here on Lake Cadillac.
It is a cold day in Michigan today, but it is the perfect time to show off this brand new 2020 boat, the Adventurer 188 DC.
While the Adventurer itself may not be brand new, this 188 DC or dual console layout is a fresh offer from Smokercraft. It also comes in 16 and 17-foot models with fish and ski and tiller configurations.
This is the hardcore fishing boat, and it's really set up really nice for fishing. A guy that likes to fish inland lakes, but still likes to spend a little bit of time on big water, it's the perfect boat.
And Lake Cadillac today, we got a bit of wind. We can see how it runs in the chop, but it's nothing that's gonna overthrow us in a boat like this.
Absolutely not, but we're definitely gonna get to put it through its paces today.
The Adventurer 188 DC is 18 feet 11 inches long with a 96-inch beam, weighing in at 1,890 pounds dry. This boat was built to be easy to use and easy to trailer, so you can stretch your season well into weather like today.
The storage is huge in this boat. You basically have two ginormous dry storage compartments, and their finished dry storage is what are really nice. It has basically this foam interior on the door, does a better job of keeping the water out. There's a live well here. You can put smaller fish in there, but it also makes a great spot for a cooler. You throw a bag of ice in there, you open the plug, and out it goes out the back of the boat, which is super nice. And then on the other side is just another dry storage compartment. And so for an 18-foot class boat, you're just simply not gonna find a boat of this size that has more storage. And that was the big thing with the whole Adventurer series of boats, is we wanted to create a hardcore fishing boat, but also have tons of storage. And the Adventurer does a great job of that.
Tackle and equipment storage was obviously a priority on this boat, designed with the hardcore fisherman in mind, and rod storage as well.
I'm super excited about this rod locker because, Drew, you know how many rods I like to take with me.
Seriously.
And you can get 12 rods easily in this rod locker. So guys that want to troll, or just fishermen that like to bring a lot of rods, you can bring them all with you. And it's nice just to have them in your boat. But let me show you another cool feature in the rod locker itself. When we lift this latch up here, and you pull it back, you're gonna see in there, you're gonna see 2 spots for your deep cycle batteries for your electric motor. And they're right down in the belly of the beast, right center in the hull, right where they need to be for the best performance.
More smart use of space in each of the consoles with 2 comfy wood-free seats on each side.
One of the things that I'm super excited about is the flat space. I'm a fisherman, and so I like to mount electronics on stuff, and a flat space just allows you to put a lot of graphs on there. And so You can see this whole console has got plenty of room. You know, there's just a little Hummingbird unit on here right now, but you can easily put, you know, 2 9-inch units on here very easily.
Light up rocker switches, a pair of gauges, and Jensen audio controls keep the dash simple as is. And on the passenger side, a big glove box, a Plano box compartment, and standard is a 13-quart angle bait cooler with its own cutout and straps, perfect for live bait and minnows. The cockpit has tons of room for a boat of this size with a pair of seat mounts, fold-down jump seats with storage underneath, a second but bigger aerated live well, additional rod storage along the port side gunnel, and smart toe kicks to let you get right up against the rails. Smokercraft has also put some thought into cleaning up with a full-length drain track built right into the floor on both sides.
If it's raining out or if it's really rough and you get some water in the boat, it's gonna hit those drains right out the back of the boat. So you never have to worry about any kind of standing water on the floor.
And for accessories, Smoker's integrated track system has you covered.
Pretty much all of our boats are going to this integrated track, and it just allows you to put accessories on there, like rod holders. We have cup holders and tool holders, and you name it, it slides into that track.
Enough talk, let's get out and see if we can catch some fish in this freezing weather. I don't know if you take these big windscreens for granted in the summertime, but in the fall you really appreciate them. And this is a nice tall one that we got here on this one.
We've always talked about like doing a double bubble configuration of smaller windshields, which would be kind of nice in the summer, but when it's this cold, it's really nice to have it.
Up here, up in the north, you get to stretch your season out as much as you can with things like this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're fishing right up until the boat launches are frozen and you can't go out anymore. I think one of the nicest things about this boat is the amount of space for an 18-foot boat. You know, you're not going to find a bow much bigger than what we got right here.
I just got to learn how to cast is my only problem now. Well, it might be too cold even for the fish, so let's see how this thing handles. So let's talk power. We got the 150 Evinrude on here right now.
You don't need a 150. I think this boat would run beautifully with like a 115 on it.
Yeah.
That Generation 2 hull, you don't need as much horsepower to get up. Basically, that boat is sitting up on that back pad.
Can I try it?
Yeah, I know it. It's time. I'll hand it off.
All right.
It almost feels more like a fiberglass boat, and the concept basically came from fiberglass boats, a padded hull. And so we've been able to do the same thing with aluminum and still get that great performance.
Yep. You mind if I open it up?
Open her up.
Here we go. That's about enough fishing in the cold for me. Thanks to Jake for showing us around Lake Cadillac and the Adventurer 188 DC. It's a fun ride that should satisfy anglers of all skill levels, from the totally inept to the completely adept.
Everyone knows gasoline vapors can explode, and that you should run your engine blowers for 4 minutes before starting your engines. But when was the last time you even looked at your blowers? Older blowers are definitely not as efficient as new ones, and these oldies really suck hard on the batteries. 17 amps, ouch. They also don't seem to move a lot of air anymore, but the wiring seems good, so we're going to install a new set of Atwood blowers. This is a fairly simple DIY, but if you don't feel comfortable working on electrical systems on your own, maybe have a professional do it for you. The first thing you want to do is measure the diameter of your hose. That way you know which blower to buy. While you're at it, it's a good idea to check the hoses for any cracks or tears. Here's one here. The new blowers won't work as well if there's a big hole in the hose. These are Atwood's Turbo 4000 4-inch inline blowers, and they are water resistant, which is handy if you're in the bilge. Now you'll see a little flow direction on here, and you want to make sure you're pointing them in the right direction. Atwood builds them to last with nickel-plated motor cans and proper tinned wires for corrosion resistance. They feature stiffening ribs to help reduce any housing distortion, tabs for easy mounting, and 5-blade fans for maximum airflow. Plus, Atwood blowers meet all ABYC, Coast Guard, and ISO standards, which means they are ignition protected and safe to use where gasoline vapors can accumulate. They also come with a 3-year warranty. Swapping out the old blowers is fairly easy. Just make sure you direct the exhaust flow to the exhaust vent. The arrow on top indicates the flow direction. You'll need a couple of number 10 stainless screws to mount it. Now we just got to hook up the wires and the vents. The existing wiring checks out okay for resistance, so we can simply crimp the fan wires together with shrink wrap butt connectors. If this was a new or direct wire install, you'd want to add the appropriate fuse within 6 feet of the positive terminal on the battery. In this case, we are wiring to the existing breaker panel. Connect the hoses by twisting them flush with the housing and zip tie them in place. Check the hose routing to make sure there are no major bends, and locate the intake end of it as low as possible in the bilge without any chance of it being potentially submerged. All that's left is to check their operation. Now that's a bit quieter. And if you don't have a warning label at the helm, you can affix the one that came in the box.
For those of us who trailer boats, load guides are an essential feature for helping to get the boat onto the trailer, especially at a busy launch or in any kind of current. We installed these padded load guide covers a few years ago to help protect the boat from the guides, but as you can see, they're looking a little worse for wear these days. So today what we're gonna do is replace them with something that'll never need to be replaced again. PVC. Once you know the diameter of your load guides, a simple trip to the hardware store is all you need to do. We determined that ours are 1.75 inches, so we picked up one 10-foot length of 2-inch PVC pipe that'll do both sides. We opted for white to make them more visible when you're backing up, but there are other colors available. We'll top it off with a couple end caps secured with PVC cement. Be sure to clean the pipe before you use the cement to ensure a perfect bond. Putting some PVC cement around the inside of the cap so that when we put it on, it'll stick to the pipe. I got my gloves on because this stuff is nasty. Cement on, cap on, and just like that, new, better looking load guide covers that roll when the boat comes into contact with them. And with this nice white visibility, I won't put any more dents in my garage door. Now, what to do with these old ones?
Peterborough, Ontario has a long and decorated history in the boat and motor building industry, dating as far back as the late 1800s. Most notably, Peterborough boats, founded in 1892 by William H. Hill and Elihu Edwards, produced wooden and later aluminum boats right up until 1961. Peterborough was also home to one of OMC's subsidiary companies, producing Johnson and Evinrude outboards until they were later acquired by BRP. The Peterborough race might be the last race in the schedule, but it's also special for another reason. Most people don't realize that in the mid-50s, there were no other place in the world producing more boats than Peterborough, Ontario. And here, we've got a collection of old boats meeting up with new boats. And this is just one example of a boat that was pulled out of a barn and partially restored to show you what the restoration process can look like. Now this one's a little bit special because it's only been half restored. In fact, port is as it was when it came out of the barn. But on the starboard, she's been fully restored. It takes a lot of organization to pull off an event like this. From launching and racing boats to organizing divisions and classes. This event attracted racers with quite the variety of boats. Charger, Challenger, Hydrostream, STV, those are all hot lake racer boat names from my youth. And they kind of evoke memories of performance. And this is the V-Hull champion, the Allison, an XR 2001 with a drag 300. But not just any drag 300, a heavily modified 400 horsepower drag 300. We are in Peterborough, and it's race day. Some are veterans to this sport, while others are new racers learning from the pros.
I had some fast Sea-Doos, and a friend of ours, Greg Keeling there, actually, he raced the boats, and I was around his shop and checking them out and stuff, and I thought it looked pretty cool and that I'd maybe like to give it a chance. Started looking around, we found the boat and talked to some guys and put together a bit of a combination for this year, and really excited about how it turned out. This is a 1988 Charger STV. I bought it locally from another fellow who had raced it. He had refinished the boat a couple of years ago, and he had quite a success with it. But I bought it without a motor. Then this winter, I got a hold of the guys at Top Gun there and came up with a combination put together to race this class. So it's a 200 Merc stock motor. We run a 15-inch mid, so short and mid, and modern alien cowl, and some vintage decals and stuff. So I've raced for 30 years, all kinds of different motorsports, snowmobiles, motorcycles, and I can honestly say that hands down, this is the best organization I've ever raced with. The people are phenomenal, phenomenal. Very family-oriented, driven. Everybody's here to help each other out. I'm really excited. So we found a home here for sure.
It's a 1974 Honda runner bottom that I got 2 years ago. It was in pretty decent shape, but it needed full restoration, so I've been working on it for 2 years ago. I started on it, and then I finished it in June. I put it on a rotisserie, so all the bottom's painted like the top, and built a stroker motor for it. It's a 496. Outboards have a different feel. They don't have a torque the way these do. It's a different way of going quick, and this is just another way of going quick, and a different type of sound, and both of them sound beautiful, 2 strokes and 4 strokes. You can listen to a big block with open headers and do 100 miles an hour, but if you're on the road beside that, you get a ticket, you know? So I just like racing anybody, it's fun.
When it was finally time to race, the weather wasn't too cooperative. However, the racers kept racing.
We're getting a little rain here in Peterborough today, but it's not stopping the racers. And if you look closely, most of these boats don't have a windshield. So you can imagine what that rain feels like at 80 miles an hour.
Raindrops at 80 miles an hour hurt. At 100, 105, they really hurt.
We've had the utmost pleasure of being asked to be a sponsor. Absolutely been thrilled to have that privilege to work with these guys and their families. We're running about 92 boats, I believe, today. Right. It's literally doubled itself in about 3 years, 3 seasons so far. And now we're getting guys that are more active to head down to Jasper for the Worlds.
While the awards for the day's events were being handed out, one thing became perfectly clear. This very inclusive group of people are as passionate about boats as we are. Whether you're going 100 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, powerboating can be a way of life.